want to talk about boundaries. If I'm going to stay, which a lot of people do, like I'm going to stay at this job, I'm not going to lose security or I've had so much time invested here, that's fine. What are you going to do for you? How are you going to create that boundary? So whether it's not checking your emails when you're not at work or not having that app on your phone to check it, and putting do not disturb on that, having two separate phones, one for work and one from home, taking your lunch break, taking a break, taking the time off that you have. Some people just accrue them. No, take that.
Yeah.
You know, when you're out of work, you're out of work, and really focus on the quality and really take time to pour back into yourself. I always tell people, I'm like, what did you used to like to do when you were younger? And they're like, what? I'm like, just roll with me.
Mm-hmm.
I still have to dance. Okay. When was the last time you danced? I don't know. Or swim or go on a hike or go on a vacation. Go back to the person who wasn't scared and knew how to take care of you and tap into that person to see what is it that you're not doing for yourself that you should be doing. So when I always talk to my women about let's check your hormones, I'm like, respectfully, this has nothing to do with your age. I ask the men I work with the same thing. When was the last time you checked your hormones? And I feel like by the time we get to the stage of looking at perimenopause or menopause, we've already done so much damage in our teens and 20s and 30s. That's the labs I'm also talking about. I'm like, this is not even about age. This is like how we dysregulated your system for
Yeah.
decades.
Yeah. Yes, I say that to women too, because a lot of them will say things like, "Oh, it feels like it happened overnight." I'm like, "Nope.
No.
This is years in the making." Yes, your age matters somewhat, of course, because at some point our hormones do start to change and decline. How much of what you've been doing up until now has exacerbated some of your symptoms, and not paying attention to things that you mentioned, like sleep. That's like one of the biggest things, and so many women struggle with sleep. But they also haven't prioritized it up until now.
Having worked with you personally. The culture piece for me too, when it comes to some of the changes you're talking about, is like I never sat down for a meal that didn't have rice, a
Mhm.
protein, and beans. So when we were working together, I was like, well, how, what, where? So it's like no veggie, all carbs, a little bit of protein, or even breakfast. Breakfast, traditional breakfast is Cuban bread with butter and
Mhm.
like café con leche.
Mm.
So how do you teach somebody? And I remember there were some things you're like, how about this? I'm like, what is that? For the first time you said ghee, I was like, oh, that just sounds gross. And I was like, it's just purified butter. I can do that. So it's finding the places and being open to exploring. And then there were some things I was like, Claudia, it's not happening. Just move
Yeah.
on to the next thing. But it's so hard because and a lot of it too, I think it is financial.
Yeah.
So much of it is financial. And I didn't realize that again until we started working together. So there were times where I didn't realize it, but my mom was making yellow rice with veggies and salchichas, which are like Vienna sausages, or a can of spam. And I thought it was
Yep.
delicious. She would slice it and cook it on the thing. And I was like, oh, we had spam. And I remember I got married. I'm like, told my husband, I'm like, oh, I'll make a spam for dinner. He's like, no, you will not. It's potted meat. Like, okay, not ideal or healthy. But
Yeah.
it was what you did to survive. And nobody ever said we didn't have because we did have.
Yeah.
They were resourceful. But again, we're trained. So my dish was yellow rice, few tiny cut of vegetables, and like Vienna sausages.
Yeah.
So how do you unlearn that at this stage?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean,
Oh,
I'm
no
the
magic
first
stick.
to say it. And I respect everybody, what they, how they were brought up and what they enjoy. I never want to take people's joy away from them, right? If there's like certain foods that you really like, but I always bring in the education piece with clients like, well, this is what's happening. And that's why I like to test and look at data, because I could say as much as I want, but unless somebody actually sees it in front of them, like what their body is doing, how it's functioning underneath the surface, so to speak, they're not typically going to have the incentive to make those changes. So in this stage of life, because just talking about rice and, beans, obviously I like those things too, but as we're losing our hormones, we do become more prone to blood sugar imbalance and potentially insulin resistance, which of course is inflammation and could lead to diabetes. So it's that shift that we have to make. It's like, okay, well, can I still enjoy some of the foods I like, but can I make some tweaks to it? Maybe I'm having a little bit less rice, a little more protein, a little more veggie. So I grew up on pasta.
I know.
That's all
I
I
remember
ate.
going to your house.
Pasta and cheese, and of course there was some meats and things, but I mean, my mom to this day still makes pasta on Sundays, but we've helped her tweak it where it's like, well, mom, you got to add some protein to it and maybe swap to gluten free. And for, oh my gosh, when we first told her to go to use gluten free pasta, She thought we were insane, me and my sister. She was just like, this tastes like cardboard. But then she found her own over time. She started like trying different ones and she's like, oh, this is
Good.
delicious. I'm like, great, mom. But when it comes to like the older generation, I don't try to change what they want. If they come to me for help, of course I'm gonna share, but sometimes you just have to accept people for who they are.
Even with me, it's the in-between generation, right? So that's I'm hardwired by that, but I was also open to I want to feel better. Like this
Yeah,
brain fog, this stinks. I want to have energy for my kids. And it's figuring out like, okay, so maybe I can't adopt this, but I can tweak this other thing. And
exactly. So while we're on that topic, what are some things, you as a busy, successful, and ambitious woman, what do you like? How do you prioritize your mental and physical health? Like, what are non negotiables for you?
my 4-day weekends,
Mhm.
family time is huge, huge for me. If my kids very rarely do I miss any like field trip or school event, I'm there, I'm signed up, I'm present. Uh, sharing my little family with my bigger family in Miami. So always trying to make sure that we're present for birthdays and those are so important to me. To me, family is so important. So yes, you can have boundaries, but I think I know you were saying about boundaries and family and alluding to enmeshment slightly, but I feel like there's a part of us that is grounded in that in a healthy way, right? Within terms, within that is so important. And I really, you said it before, I love the work that I do. I love the work that I do. And yes, I can't work around the clock, but when I'm really passionate about something or I'm really motivated, it doesn't feel like work. So then I'm probably working a little bit on the weekends and don't even realize it because I really love what I do and the extension of the work that I'm doing, right? When we record these episodes, podcast or YouTube, we don't know who's going to listen or how many, but then a year or two later to get an email that says, I've been listening to your podcast. I just quit my job and it's everything that I needed to hear. Thank you so much. And like that is so fulfilling. So I would say it's definitely the longing for what we're doing. I think that gives a lot back to me too. And then again, knowing that I'm showing and I'm teaching not just by my words, but by action for my kids. I love dancing, love to dance. We sing on the way home and back, sing dance. In the car drive, like my car in the morning, we're definitely not mellow catching in lots of movie nights and cuddles, taking lots of trips. I, thanks to my financial strategist, this was the first year, and I don't know if you can relate. I feel like maybe a lot of us can and wouldn't, but this was the first time I took 2 weeks off for vacation and it was completely unplugged. And had personal time off, like I bucketed. So we went to St. Bart's for almost 2 weeks, fully paid, didn't take a phone call, didn't nothing email, nothing. And it was the first time I was able to take time off and not have to work or worry about where was that money coming from for those 2 weeks.
Yeah,
It was
that's
phenomenal.
huge. That's
So
huge.
vacations, travel, lots of family time. That's my balance. And the 4-day weekends really like recharge me.
I love how you answer that question because you bring a different perspective and I want women to hear this because so many women will be thinking about what supplement can I take? What diet should I follow? What
Okay.
workout? And
Oh,
I know, like
no,
it's a challenge.
no.
To me, this is what's important. Like, yes, obviously the work that I do, we're testing, we're giving women supplements, but I always tell them it's one piece. Like, what about all the stuff that you just mentioned?
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I have my drawer full of supplements that, we've worked through and my adrenals and there's some supplements and my magnesium is out. I'm not sleeping well and I don't drink as much water as I should, but I have the awareness of that. And I know knowing how your body reacts, what your body needs and what your body responds to is so important too. But yeah, to me, I get it. It's the psychological and the emotional for me, and it's movement. So I know you talk about like the rebounder and walking and exercising. I'm like, I'm going to dance and I'm going to laugh and I'm going to just spend time with family. Like that's my version of it. But that is what fills me
Yep.
truly.
And I think that's important. And I love that you're able to recognize that. I don't think a lot of women do. You said something earlier about how you ask clients what do they like to do or what did they find joy in when they were younger, and a lot of them have to like think about it. And I think as women and as adults we just tend to forget. We forget to play because we're so serious and we have to be so professional and responsible. And why? Again, life is short, and play and fun and connecting with people that we love is what, in my opinion, really helps us stay healthy.
Well, that's what life is about. Like, if you're not having fun and playing, you're missing a big part of it. And if you're listening to this and that's you, then you need to revisit a little bit about what you did. And I am the most open therapist you'll ever meet in the world. And my husband turns colors anytime my kids ask me questions because we don't do storks. It's age appropriate answers. But like this weekend, I was answering pride questions and how do women that have wives and men that have husbands have babies? And like I answer them. This
Yeah.
is my job. And I tell my kids, always come to me. I'll always answer your questions. And part of me saying all of this is that when you lose sight of who you are at your core, because you've been so influenced by your environment or social expectations, that you can't remember who that is or what joy is. Like in my house, like, what do you want to be? I want to be an NBA player. Awesome. Okay, great. Like there's no discouraging. Okay, how are you going to make that happen? Let's do this. And I'm not putting pressure on it. I'm embracing. And I think what happens is when we get older, people start jading us. So it's
Mm.
kind of removing all of everybody else's feelings from yours and coming up with your own, however crazy it feels or seems or sounds, and not caring. Maybe that's a different kind of gift.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, maybe not caring and just not letting other people's fears and BS really influence your decisions. I mean, how many people do the things that's expected of them and then they're not happy?
Too many.
Yeah, a
Many. I
lot
think
of people.
bulk of people.